What's the matter, Hemingway?
Argumentation.
Never known you to have trouble arguing.
I just can't come up with a good example of everyday argumentative writing.
How about a short autobiography?
You always kick a guy when he's down?
Sure. Gives him incentive to get up.
Oh, maybe that's what I ought to do. Get up.
You know, one of the things I've always admired about you, Norm, is the calm way you handle frustration.
Look, I'm sorry. Things just haven't been coming together for me. I feel like doing a hook shot of myself into Waldo. It's all the definitions and rules in this program. Syllogism, enthymeme, distributed term, major premise. By the time we finish defining them all, there'll be no time left in the program for anything else.
Sounds as if you're overly concerned with the terminology instead of the argumentative process and how to use it.
To understand the process, the students have to understand the terms, so we have to define all of them.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You just used an enthymeme without defining it or even mentioning it by name.
I did?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure how to spell it.
You said that the students have to understand the terms. Then you came to the conclusion that the only way they can is for us to teach them. That's an enthymeme, a short, informal syllogism.
See, there's another one, syllogism.
Oh, Norm, I'm not saying that we should ignore the terminology and the definitions, but they're not the primary concern of this program.
Norm, if you were taking a taxi to the airport, would you be more concerned about what kind of car it was, or with whether or not it got you to the airport safely and on time?
Getting there, of course, but that's not what we're talking.
The issue here that we have to address is how to use the argumentative process. Now look, why don't you take a few moments and look at this tape? It's about the importance of knowing how to use the process, and you'll notice definitions aren't even mentioned.
I agree with you, Gwen.
What is this, a conspiracy?
No.
No. Merely a collaboration of superior minds. Seriously, Norm, people use the process every day without having any idea what the labels are.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Good argumentation skills are important because in everyday life they're very applicable. People use them in the courtroom, they use them in urban planning sessions, business policy making sessions, any time really where there are two sides or more sides to an issue and people are trying to develop strategies in arguing for or against these strategies.
While you're in college, it's important to learn to make a point, to back it up with evidence, in essence, to sell your ideas to others. That's important in doing a research paper on any topic, to gather evidence and then put the evidence together with good argumentation. That means putting the ideas together in good logical sequence so that they build upon one another and bring the reader or the listener to the conclusion you want to make.
If students come to speech communication courses and they try to develop speeches on which they take particular positions on particular issues, they may need these types of argument skills. If they go into business classes and they try to advocate particular products or strategies for selling products, again, argumentation comes in. In history or political science courses, when students are trying to put together arguments about particular positions or events in history, again, the argumentation skills fit. So in a variety of academic settings, they'll find these types of skills useful.
That's important in a course. It's also important in a career such as selling or management to be able to make your point with others.
Okay. I admit the terms are secondary, but I still don't have a good example for our program.
Good morning, guys.
Hello, Fred.
Yeah, busy, huh? Oh, good. Anyone got jumper cables?
Did your old van die out on you again?
Yeah.
Fred, why don't you get a set of jumper cables permanently installed to a plug on your front bumper?
That's a good idea.
Or better yet, why don't you just get a new van?
Oh, wouldn't I like a new van? See this? Requisition number 3. I'm taking over to there right now. I'm not going to get very far with it. They keep saying, why don't you just fix up the old one? It's got another good year. Well, if this is a good year, I'd hate to see a bad one.
Well, Fred, you're in luck. Working women have to be prepared.
What in the world are you doing with jumper cables in your desk drawer?
I have trouble getting started in the mornings.
I know what you mean. Hey, where's Cassie?
She's at the library.
Well, thanks, Jenny. I'll have these back to you by
Okay.
noon.
Norm, you want to take a look at my introduction, see if it gives you any ideas?
Sure, if it'll get me started.
First thing I'm going to start with is this tape on forms of argumentation. There are a lot of different argumentative approaches. Listen and watch, and maybe you will learn.
There are basically three forms that argumentation can take. First of all, you can take a stand and use your evidence to try to support that stand as well as you can. Secondly, you can try to anticipate what the opposition is going to say and prepare the audience for that position. And third, you can take what the opposition is going to say and find fallacies in it or refute what it is the opposition is going to do. Let's talk a little bit about each of those options. In the first case, what the argumenter tries to do is to take a position and use his evidence to present it as well as possible. If you genuinely believe that your position is the best possible in an alternative, perhaps you can best use your time by mustering your evidence as concretely as possible to take that position and defend it. If you think the opposition has a strong argument that the audience is kind of leaning to, what you might choose to do instead is to tell the audience what you think your opposition is going to present and why it's wrong, why it's not in their best interests. In the third alternative, where you're trying to take the opposition's argument and tear it apart, what you might do here is select, if you think the opposition is going to be weak, then do the very best you can with your evidence to say why the position is weak. Refute it, tear it apart, and suggest to your audience that you have something better to offer. And a very careful analysis of where the audience stands, what its leanings are, what its background is, what its particular interests are can be very helpful. An analysis of the other speaker and his or her expertise in the particular area can be useful. Any particular situational demands and some consideration on what the audience expects in a given situation can be helpful. And then some very careful consideration of your material, its strength and its organizational format can be helpful here as well. So really, somebody in argumentation has to consider how those four things interact: the speaker, the situation, the audience, and the message, in terms of trying to figure out which style of argumentation is best.
Okay, first thing we have to do is focus on the audience. An audience will fall into one of three major categories.
Right. Those who will agree with you, and those who don't agree and probably never will, and those who can't make up their minds.
Right. And the kind of audience that you have is going to help to determine the form of argumentation that you choose. Okay, the next factor we have to consider is the evidence that you have. And for that, we need an example, Norm.
Yeah. And Waldo's got everything I've come up with so far. Let's see. I need an example of a written argument to...
You think it was something he ate?
I doubt it. His creative techniques can be very unorthodox.
Well, yes, but if he keeps, running like that, he's never going to get this script done.
It'll only take a minute, Fred. Look, you'll like it. I'm trying to you'll like it. You'll like it.
What on earth?
Ladies, we are going to help Fred get a new van. Think of it. We need an example of argumentation, persuasion. Now, we'll use a proper argumentative method and help Fred write a requisition that will convince the company bosses he needs a new van.
Grab a cup of coffee, Fred.
No, thanks. Hey, guys, I'd really like to help you out, but I've already written the requisition.
You've been turned down twice, you said, Fred. Third time's the lucky charm.
It will be, because this time they're going to see things my way.
Fred, maybe the problem is you haven't been seeing things their way. Jenny, we start out with?
Analyze your audience.
Right. Fred, who's it going to?
The financial committee, they're ogres. They devour requisitions and spit out refusals. They're inconsiderate, penny-pinching bureaucrats who haven't got a grain of compassion.
I'll assume that's Fred's rather flamboyant description of a practical mind. Let's see. Okay. At the present time, the art department is hampered in performing its work by our assigned vehicle, a 5-year-old undependable excuse for transportation. The van will not start half the time and cannot be depended on to get us to its destination when it does start.
When it stalls. Yesterday it stalled in downtown traffic. It was backed up for blocks.
Believe me, Fred, I'm glad I wasn't there to see it. Okay, also, the dented fenders, scratched and faded paint, and smoking muffler are a disgrace to our company image. I therefore recommend it be replaced with a new van as soon as possible.
Not too good, huh?
Oh, Fred, I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you wouldn't?
No, but I would. This is awful.
Oh, Norman, you can't make a blanket statement that it's awful without saying why.
Well, Fred, you don't have any concrete evidence to support your case. The only thing you've really said there is that it won't start.
Right, a new battery might be all you need.
He used more emotion and personal opinion than evidence. Expressions like is hampered by and excuse for transportation don't belong in an objective, argumentative piece.
I think I'll take that cup of coffee now. Now, you guys can be objective. You don't have to drive that heap.
Fred, can I assume that no one on the committee drives the van either? Okay. Well, then they have to be given evidence that your old van is a heap and factual reasons why the only solution to your problem is a new van.
Gentlemen, shall we take it from the top and apply good argumentation to the problem?
Okay, let's do it.
But what about our program? We have a script to finish.
Oh, this won't take long, Gwen. And besides, it'll help us, with the script.
Hey, wait a minute. You mean to say that I'm the guinea pig for this program again?
Well,
Yes.
Oh, well, just checking.
Well, we'll see how it goes. As long as it doesn't take too long.
Okay, good. Now, we know from analyzing the audience that their main concern is the cost. So let's approach them through their collective pocketbook. Okay, let's start off by stating the basic premise.
He means take one of two opposing viewpoints.
tell him what you want, Fred.
Oh, okay. Let's see, the art department needs dependable transportation, and a new van is the most dependable, so I need a new van.
A syllogism, right off the bat.
A what?
A syllogism, a deductive form of reasoning.
Huh?
You see, Gwen, that's what I was talking about before. We have several different kinds of syllogisms and a whole bunch of rules to go with them.
Correct, and they're all listed in the textbook. Now let's define deductive reasoning and get on with the process.
Okay. Deductive reasoning. That's going from general to specific.
Would you like to run that by again?
Okay, Fred. You said the art department needs dependable transportation. Now, that's generally accepted as true, and it's your major premise. Then you said a new van is most dependable. That's your minor premise, and it's also generally accepted as true. So you need a new van is your conclusion, which must be true if the first two are.
I think I'll just keep the old van.
No, we can fix it.
The van?
No, the syllogism.
What's wrong with it?
The van.
No, the syllogism.
Huh?
How much time do we have?
Hey, what do you mean?
Well, aside from the fact that it breaks all kinds of rules for form and for the use of distributed and undistributed terms, your argument's full of holes.
Fallacies.
Right. Fallacies. You have a questionable minor premise. A reconditioned van is dependable transportation. So is a bus. So is a bicycle.
Hey, wait a minute. I can't haul flats and lumber and paint and tools in a bus. A bicycle.
Fred, we're only telling you one of the things wrong with your syllogism. A new van isn't the only form of dependable transportation.
How can you make the syllogism correct, Norman?
Well, to make the distributed terms correct, your major premise would say the art department must have the most dependable form of transportation. Then the minor premise would say the most dependable transportation is a new van. So we can conclude the art department must have a new van.
Well, that might be correct form, but it won't win any arguments. First of all, you'd have to prove that the art department does need the most dependable form of transportation. And second of all, you haven't said a thing about costs, and that's what we analyzed our audience as being most interested in.
Oh, I think I've got the specific evidence to prove that I need a new van. In dollars and cents.
Oh, if you've got the evidence, we need to present it, and that means we have to use a different form of reasoning, the inductive process.
Huh?
The inductive process.
What's the difference?
Okay. With the inductive process, we use lots of specific evidence to prove that our basic statement is true. Our basic statement being the art department needs a new van.
Specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Have I got specifics?
Okay, let's go.
Low interest rates, full warranty service, new car depreciation, tax advantages, fuel efficiency. I mean, the new vans make this old crate of mine look like a gas guzzler.
Oh, there's the outline for your first paragraph telling the committee that they need to buy a new van. Anything else?
Yeah, I don't really like the faded gray color of that old van. I think I'd like a nice, bright red one. Hey, what's wrong with that?
Well, I doubt if it would fall under the heading of evidence, but a bright red van. It might fulfill the aesthetic values of the department.
There is one more point that we have got to address. Fixing the old van would fill a lot of your needs and it'd cost a lot less money.
No way. I mean, that piece of junk that we've got right now is going to $100 us to death, and it's going to get worse.
Who says that?
I say that.
Fred, you build great scenery. You make great television props. But why should anyone listen to you about the condition of a van?
Fred, every person on that committee might know more about cars than you do. You need better evidence.
Evidence? Hey, I don't need evidence. I'm not on trial.
No, but your ideas are.
That's the point. A mountain of evidence is no good if it's merely opinions, like your first piece of writing there.
That's what's on this tape, isn't it?
What tape?
This tape. On evidence for the argumentation script.
It's our evidence on evidence.
Now I've got to watch a tape.
Well, you've spent this much time already. A few more minutes won't hurt.
And it is good information.
Evidence.
It's extremely important to anticipate what the opposition is going to do, both in terms of building your argument and in terms of anticipating what you're going to be responding to. And people in argumentation have to be able to do both of these things, build solid, well-reasoned arguments, and also be prepared to respond to what it is that they hear from the opposition.
Well, anticipation, and I can rephrase that as preparation of your argument, is really the key to any successful argument. And that is going to shape the way you look at presenting your evidence.
It's said that Abraham Lincoln was once asked the secret of his success in convincing opponents and in winning debates with opponents. And his answer was he spent about 90% of his time figuring out what his opponent was going to say and 10% of the time figuring out what he was going to say. If you're a step ahead of your opponent, can anticipate his argument, you stand a much better chance then of convincing those listening or reading.
New evidence tends to be more credible than old evidence based on changing times and conditions. You might also consider whether the source has been reliable in the past in terms of its reputation and its predictability. Is the information in the evidence internally consistent, or are there contradictions within the pieces of evidence?
If you're citing the opinion of an expert, make sure the expert really is an expert in the field. It does very little good logically to quote a movie star on a political or an economic question, nor does it do much good to quote an economist or government official on a question of art judgment. Among college students, the things I see most often are students confusing opinion with evidence. Evidence has to be factual, or you may be dealing with an argument that is not based on empirical fact, that is, facts that can be observed and measured. In that case, you have to use propositions that are generally accepted, that are consistent with reality as we know it, one of the textbook syllogisms is, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. It's hard to argue with the proposition that all men are mortal. At least so far, all have been. So that may count as evidence in one kind of reasoning. If you're trying to draw an empirical conclusion that can be based in science or mathematics, then you use observable, repeatable, demonstrable facts.
People cite lots of pieces of evidence without putting together some type of organizational package, interpreting what the evidence really means. Perhaps that's the most basic problem that people have when they organize evidence. Another problem has to do with trying to select which pieces of evidence will make the best case in a particular situation. And sometimes people don't have clear enough standards for trying to determine which pieces of evidence are better than others. Let's go back in terms of selecting a piece of evidence from the 1976 presidential debates. Gerald Ford is well remembered for saying that Poland was not a communist country. Now, that's not exactly what Gerald Ford meant. What he meant to say, perhaps, is that Poland is not as much under the sphere of communism as some of the other communist countries. Nevertheless, the interpretation given to Ford's position is that Poland is not a communist country, and that's something that people just didn't agree with back in '76. It's something that hurt Ford somewhat. Here's another example of how evidence might not be fully interpreted. Let's say somebody involved in argumentation makes this type of statement. It is raining today, therefore the basketball team is going to win on Saturday. Those two pieces of material really don't follow together. Somebody who's experienced in argumentation might take a look at the first statement and say there's no logical reason why the second statement follows. A more careful interpretation of the evidence might suggest that it is raining today, period, with no more implications drawn about what the basketball team was going to do.
Okay. Fred, is the mechanic who services the van considered an expert?
Bill, he keeps that heap running. He's an expert.
Okay.
Okay.
Then he qualifies.
Good, then I'll quote him.
Just a minute. Note that what we're doing now is different than presenting arguments to support our original premise. Now we're anticipating the opposition's arguments and refuting them. All right, this part of the requisition will give reasons why it would be unwise to recondition the old van. Okay, Fred, sick 'em.
Okay, first of all, how about 2 or 3 quarts of oil a month? Okay? And then Bill said he couldn't find the oil leak, so that must be the rings. And he says the wear and tear on the front tires indicates the front end needs alignment.
How are the tires?
I've seen them. My kids blow thicker bubbles.
So you need tires and an alignment.
Yeah, and the shocks are gone. I mean, gone. Bill also doubts the exhaust system will pass inspection. It really needs a tune-up. And the spark plug wires, 2 of them are almost burned in half. Now you total all of this up and you've spent nearly $1,500.
And don't forget, it won't even start right now.
Yeah, that's probably the alternator and not the battery.
And when you do the final draft, you ought to include a list of the probable costs for these repairs. Okay, Fred. We've got to go from specific to general and convince the Finance Committee on the way. So let's get down to business and take a crack at the final piece, huh? Okay. Your first paragraph will start off saying, the present van assigned to the art department no longer provides dependable transportation and is making it difficult for us to perform our work satisfactorily. I recommend that a new van be purchased to replace the old one.
That's good.
And the second paragraph might go on something like this. Buying a new van will offer our company the following advantages. Full warranty service for an extended time, full term depreciation tax advantages, lower interest rates on new vehicles, and a considerable savings on operating costs over the next 3 years.
Boy, that's good, too.
And now we'll deal with your expert testimony. We anticipate the opposition's arguments in the third paragraph by saying, there might be a tendency on management's part to opt for reconditioning the old van. After a careful inspection by a qualified mechanic, the following repairs were cited as needed. Complete ring job, front end alignment plus tires, new shock absorbers, new muffler, tune-up and spark plug wires, new alternator and battery charge. These repairs will run approximately $1,500. And the fourth paragraph will be your conclusion. The distinct cost incentives offered by purchase of new van coupled with the large expenditure necessary to recondition the old van indicates the company can realize a considerable savings by purchasing a new van.
I couldn't have said it better.
Oh, you will next time, Fred. You catch on fast. Well, the only thing left to do is to feed the old requisition to Waldo.
Allow me.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Gwen.
You're welcome.
I thank you. My staff thanks you. And the financial committee thanks you.
Hey, Fred, you have anything particular in mind for the new van?
Oh, yeah. A 6-cylinder syllogism with air. And a trailer hitch.